So what does effective self-disclosure look like? Self-disclosure isn't about sharing things, and I think this is where men and women may struggle with some differences. Women tend to share feelings much more often than men do. Men tend to share facts or shared experiences. When we're self-disclosing, this is about sharing feelings. This is really about saying, this frightens me, this motivates me, this excites me, this angers me, this is my strength, this is my weakness. And while strengths and weaknesses are sort of couched in the form of facts, those strengths and weaknesses are linked to emotions. You know, I am proud of my strengths, and I am unhappy with my weaknesses, or I'm fearful of my weaknesses. So I think that we have to be able to allow feelings to come out. And anybody that tells you there's no room for feelings in the workplace is inappropriate. We're not talking about, you know, high-end emotionality and people having meltdowns, but we're talking about being able to say, you know, this scares me, this frightens me, this excites me, this, you know, makes me happy. These are important emotions, and if we don't have workers that feel comfortable being able to express their emotions, that's not going to lead to authenticity in the workplace. Being able to have authentic emotions is a key part of being authentic, and that helps us then to build authentic relationships. Additional ways of thinking about effective self-disclosure is making sure that we are disclosing things with more breadth and more depth over time. I mean, we don't expect to share every single part of their deep, dark secrets and histories and feelings and emotions in the workplace. You start small. Hey, that project, you know, was a little intimidating, but I'm really glad that we got through it. And this is what made it intimidating to me, blah, 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 blah. Great, well, let's work on how we can help you to feel less intimidated in those contexts. And so once you disclose the first time, it makes it easier to disclose the second time, and then instead of disclosing in this narrow area, I can disclose more broadly, and ultimately I can be myself authentically without worrying about somebody, criticizing me in that context. Focus on the present rather than the past. Again, when it comes to self-disclosure, I don't need to know what happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago. Only if it informs how we can learn from that mistake or learn from that issue to improve for the future. That's kind of the goal, right? But there are sometimes skeletons really shouldn't be shared. People don't want to know about your relationship, the broad details on your relationship woes and, specific private nuances of your relationships in your life and your health conditions. To know that I have a health condition, sure, but to know every nuanced detail about it is a very different story. So I think there are people who are big sharers. They share everything. They have no filters, and they don't know when to stop. And then there are people that don't share enough. And so obviously the goal is trying to find that happy medium. Some cultures are more closed and some cultures are more open, but again, the culture eventually shifts to adapt to the way people want to be. So people want to be open and, and people are open to that, then, openness becomes a big part of that. But, focus on where you're at on past, unless that past informs a lesson to be learned in terms of how we can fix for the future. Lastly, it's reciprocity. If someone is disclosing to you, you want to match that. You want to reciprocate that. The only way you can build a relationship with someone is to allow some self-disclosure to occur. They will hopefully match it, and then you build back and forth to make sure that builds some familiarity and builds the trusting relationship that you want. There are enormous numbers of benefits of self-disclosure, and there's a huge literature around self-disclosing if someone has a stigmatized identity. And we know that, for example, if someone has a stigmatized identity, that self-disclosure is a better thing for them. Again, it enables them to be more authentic as an individual, and decreases their stress and things like that. And we've talked some about that in the lecture on diversity. But there any kind of self-care, by being honest about your own strengths and weaknesses and fears and things like that, these also have the same kinds of benefits. We get psychological relief. It validates the way that we see the world when we can share that we have fears and someone else goes, yeah, me too. And then we realize that what we're perceiving is fair and it's reasonable. When we self-disclose, it can relieve some of our stress and tension, because if we're holding back and we don't want anybody to know that we're fearful about something or that we are really excited about something, that can create stress and tension for us. And we all know the direct relationship between stress and tension and the physiological effects on our body. When there's high levels of distress in our system, that has a negative impact on us physiologically. Their level of stress and tension is good, right? There's a sweet spot sort of there in the middle, that you want enough stress and tension to get people's attention, but not so much that they find it to be dysfunctional and not able to work. So keeping our stress levels down helps us to be more healthy physiologically, and we don't want the high levels of stress around that. And more benefits of self-disclosure is that we are being authentic in our communication. And so we have clearer communication with others. We have more enhanced relationships then when we can be more authentic. Teams are more productive when they really are clear and cohesive, and they are in tune with each other. They are more productive, and self-disclosure helps with self-awareness. A lot of times we disclose something, sometimes for the first time, when we realize, wow, it never really occurred to me how scared I was about that. I always felt this thing and I didn't know what it was. And so that builds more self-awareness for people. And the more that we practice self-awareness, the easier it is for us to be trustworthy and to accept trust from others. And so there are tremendous benefits of managing self-disclosure in a very positive way, not just around stigmas, but any kind of self-disclosure about ourselves with respect to our emotions and our fears and our dreams and our strengths and weaknesses. Clearly, people resist self-disclosure. We all do at one time or another, and largely because we're perceived as weak, we're perceived as vulnerable, because we are sharing about our feelings. So again, a company will say, you leave your feelings and emotions at the door, you're here to do a job. That's not true. People are complex and they bring emotions to the job, and we have to teach them how to manage that and what the expectations are around that. People are shy or they're introverted, and again, the self-disclosure becomes a really uncomfortable place because people feel like they're very private and they don't want aspects of themselves out there. But it is important that we find ways to talk about some key things like our values, what's important to us, what's essential, for us in terms of what motivates us and things like that. We begin small. You may never want to share everything, but you can see how being introverted can certainly have a negative impact on your ability to self-disclose. Company culture. If the culture does not value, sharing those kinds of things, it's going to be very difficult to be more authentic in the workplace. And so I think we have to start with chipping away at that culture that says that disclosure is negative. And it's okay to take some time to work hard on developing better relationships with others, revealing some of our secrets and our problems and our concerns, and ensuring that we can start to develop a different kind of culture in our organizations. Hopefully you don't have a company that punishes you for that, right? Or that there's a negative reinforcement, that you get teased or harassed for being authentic and for being more honest and disclosing things. And so we want to be careful about that. Lastly, it goes hand in hand with being perceived as weak or vulnerable, is then we think that somebody will use it against us. See, you told us that you did this, and now we're not going to let you do that anymore. It's like, oh, I was trying to tell you that I was scared, but it doesn't mean that I didn't want to try it. I didn't want to try to, combat that fear and get over that, barrier that I had. And there are plenty of vindictive people out there that will use things against you. But I think, you as the manager need to set that tone with your own employees and build that relationship of trust. And that's up to you to do. Even if the company culture is challenging, you can build a one-on-one culture of trust and self-disclosure with your employees. And they need to know that it won't go any farther than your door, and that's it. You know, that the relationship with you is where it begins and ends, and that's okay, because you guys will build a good relationship, even if the rest of the company culture isn't supporting that.